Hi, this is Rachel Watson from Tailored English Online. We offer personalized instruction for professionals as well as adolescents using Skype. Today I'm going to tell you about some typical Russian mistakes in English. I've been working with quite a number of students from Moscow and the surrounding region for the last 3 years. So today I just want to take you through several of these common mistakes, starting with some pronunciation. So the first thing that I noticed when working with lower level Russian students of English is their difficulty in making the distinction between the and d. And really it's all about the shape of the mouth and where you're placing your tongue when you blow air, right? This is what we call aspirating, when you blow air out, which is what helps you make that sound. So if this is the shape of your mouth, so this is like going down into your throat, and here's your tongue, and these will be your teeth here. When we make the th sound, you actually need to get your tongue going out between your teeth. Yeah, so th. But you're going to have that touch very lightly as you blow the air out. Th. When you're making the harder sound, you're actually going to push down a little bit more, so there's more vibration as you're bringing the tongue out, right? So we get the. So your tongue is actually just here and it's vibrating. And then when we make the d sound, your tongue actually stays behind your teeth and your teeth close. D. For me, just understanding the shape of my mouth makes a really big difference in being able to say thin and this versus that and dark. Next thing that I found very surprising when I was working with my Russian students is how often the aspirated H sound is transliterated to be a G sound. And this can create some very entertaining confusion. When one of my 12-year-old students told me that she was reading Harry Potter, it actually took me a moment to realize that she was talking about Harry Potter. That one sound made such a big difference. Or for some of my older students talking about if they were going out over the weekend and they had drunk some alcohol, like something get stuck there, alcohol. So just recognizing actually that in English, when we see that H written, we usually mean a sound. And when it's not the sound, it's silent. It definitely never means G. Final pronunciation note is the word clothes. So you'll notice there's only one S in this word. But I think because of the difficulty of making the sound followed by the Z sound, it gets doubled up. So instead of having clothes, you end up with closes, which is just not correct. It can be easily confused with the third person singular of to close, which is closes. So make sure that you can make the difference there. Clothes. We go from the clothes. Okay, moving on from pronunciation, let's talk about some vocabulary words that are very often confused. First thing I want to talk about is words that are never plural in English. So there are quite a number of words like this. We call them uncountable nouns, and you can take a whole lesson on that. But some keywords that I've noticed Russian students struggle to remember are uncountable are the ones related to what you know or what you're trying to know. So words like information, knowledge, research. We can have only a little information, or we can have a lot of information, or we can need more information, but it will never be informations. Same thing for knowledge. You can have knowledge in many fields, or you can have several bits of knowledge, but you will never have knowledges. And for research, you could be pursuing several different topics of research. And if you're using research as a verb, it could get that ES for third person singular in present. But when it's a noun, research is always going to be that uncountable form with no S at the end. Okay, another word, incidentally, that I hear Russians overuse and use incorrectly is that word, another. And in fact, it's a very exceptional word. In English, normally we don't have singular and plural forms of adjectives. A red house, two red houses. Red doesn't change, right? However, another is a very unique compound adjective. It's made of the article an and the adjective other. An other that's been pushed together so it becomes another. So I should only use the word another when it's indefinite and singular. So if I have another tip for you, or I would like another piece of bread, then I can use another. But I shouldn't say, oh, I get annoyed when another people use this word wrong. Because people is plural, so I should be using the word other. When other people use this word wrong, I find it annoying, right? Or I was disappointed because on Friday I was hoping to leave early, but then my boss came by and gave me several other tasks. We wouldn't say several another tasks. Okay, and now I want to talk about two verbs that are often confused, to say and to tell. And they both have the idea of using our mouths to communicate information, but the usage is slightly different. When I use the verb to say, I'm focused on the information. I said I didn't want any coffee, or I said that I was too tired to come to work, or I said, help, help. In all of these situations, the focus is on the information, what I said. When we use the verb to tell, we are drawing focus towards the person. Who did I give the information to? Okay, so I told my mother I was going to Russia last summer. Or I told my students they should stop using another incorrectly. We're going to have those people be the focus. Another pair of verbs that are often confused for Russian learners of English are to learn and to teach. And these are obviously related verbs. They are about a relationship of the communication of information between two people, where one is the authority who knows more and one is, well, the student, right? So I teach my students to speak better English. My students learn grammar from me. My students learn better pronunciation. Sometimes that gets confused just because you have, one verb in Russian that can be used in both of those contexts. But also it is true that in some dialects of American English, you could say, for example, I learned her to drive. Now, in standard English, it should be I taught her to drive, but we do see that come up in some regions where standard English is not what's commonly spoken. The last vocabulary issue, sort of moving towards grammar, is the verb to feel. And in Russian, usually when you talk about your own feelings, it's a reflexive verb. And so in English, many times, Russian students will say, I feel myself sick. I feel myself tired. But in fact, in English, when we talk about our feelings, we don't use a reflexive. So it should be, I feel sick. I feel better. I feel fine, without putting in that reflexive, right? And the same when we're talking about other people, right? She was feeling sick. Or he felt angry when he heard the news, without putting in any additional pronoun. So, grammar. A big problem for Russian learners of English is articles, because of course in Russian you don't have articles, so it's difficult to understand where to put these small words, a, and, the. I'm hoping to do a whole video all about articles, but for right now I wanted to look at one particular context where it can be confusing, and that's when we're talking about nationalities. I don't know. I met an American yesterday. But we can't say, I met a French yesterday. We just can't use an article to make that a noun. French in English is only an adjective, whereas American can be an adjective or a noun, and when it's a noun, therefore it can take an article. But here is a key thing that makes it easy. If the nationality, when you speak about it in English, if it ends with AN, like American, Puerto Rican, Asian, Brazilian, Russian, Italian, for all of these nationalities, they can function as an adjective, like an Italian teacher, or as a noun, an Italian. All of the other endings, with very few exceptions, can't. They only function as adjectives. This is why we say a Frenchman, an Englishwoman. That means that the article can only be used when it's functioning as a noun. There are several other grammar topics that Russians find particularly difficult, like word order, because we don't have the same rules for marking the function of a noun in a sentence. We can't tell in English which word is the subject or which word is the object or the object of a preposition, except because of the order in the sentence. So it's really, really important in English to respect the structure. Prepositions are also very difficult because there are places where in Russian you don't need a preposition, but in English you do, or in Russian you would use one preposition and it seems to translate, but in fact in English you can't just translate an individual preposition. You have to sort of enter into the logic of English and use the prepositions that fit. So those larger grammar topics work better, of course, as a whole lesson. If you're interested in improving your English grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation, feel free to contact us at Tailored English Online.